backwards. All right, so you guys are in a series called Community Blueprint, and I just want to speak into that series. That's what we've been doing all weekend. We've talked about community killers, loneliness, and shame. And so this morning I want to talk about another one and how to overcome it. I want to talk about how to be set free from envy, jealousy, and comparison. Nothing will kill a community like jealousy, envy, comparison. Now, as soon as I say that, everybody should sit up, right? Because that affects all of us. This is something that affects every single person. I don't remember who I heard say this, but I remember it stuck with me. It's called getting stuck in the land of bigger, richer, fitter, smarter, these kinds of things. And that is prison. Here's the problem with the land of For every richer, there's a poorer. For every fitter, there's a fatter, right? For every smarter, there's a dumber, right? So if you look right, you feel inferior. And if you look left, you feel superior, which doesn't help anybody. The other problem with the land of is that there is always an est. No matter how you get, you'll never be est. And so if you get richer, if you win the lottery, let's say you win $50 million, are you richer? Yep. Are you richest? Not even close. So until we deal with the habit of looking right and left instead of in and up to get our value, it's always going to be to more to more to more which is prison. The other problem with the land of is that it creates an environment conducive to envy. And envy is a community killer. Envy is a life killer. Envy destroys businesses, countries, nations, families, churches. All kinds of things can get destroyed when envy gets into the middle of our hearts and doesn't get dealt with. And it's ubiquitous. It's so common to man. It's literally in the first story in the Bible about people trying to relate to one another. It's something we're very familiar with because it comes very early in the Bible. And it has a good moral. Don't kill your brother. So we teach our children these things. Don't kill your brother. When he takes your toy, don't kill your brother, right? This has an incredible sort of wide-ranging, expansive application. So I want to take a look at this passage, and then I want to deal with this because it's so important. If you could bring that first slide up for me. This is Genesis chapter 4. It says, and Adam made love to his wife Eve. She uncovered his feet. Adam made love to his wife Eve. As she became pregnant, gave birth to Cain. She said, with the help of the Lord, I brought forth a man. Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now, Abel kept the flocks and Cain worked the soil. Oftentimes, the Bible skips a lot of detail, right? If you want evidence that a man wrote the Bible, right there, right? She gives birth, they're farming. There's nothing in between, right? It's like, what happened? Was he cute? What was he wearing? Nope, birth, farm, right? Now, in the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel, keep going, and Abel also brought an offering, but his offering was different. It was the fat portions from the firstborn of his flock. So the Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor, which is odd. Like, are we supposed to assume that God is a carnivore? He preserves meat over vegetables? What's going on here? I've heard it taught before that it was not blood. That's not the point at all. This was not a sin offering, and there was nothing written down about what to give. How are they meant to know what to give when there's nothing written down about what to give? And later in Leviticus, it says that vegetables are an acceptable offering if you're a farmer, which makes total sense. So what's going on here? The rabbis teach it this way, that the problem with Cain's offering was he gave some of the fruit of the ground, but Abel gave the first portions from the fat portions from the firstborn of his flock. So in one sense, one person had got his hands around generosity and the other one was still a bit greedy, and that's the problem. Then the topic switches to envy. Watch what happens. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? The actual Hebrew there is, what's wrong with your face? I want you to realize that God does not confront Cain for his offering. He confronts his mood, his attitude, his temperament. What's wrong with your face? If you're a parent, you understand this. You're doing something. She comes in, 14 years old, and we would say it this way, it's written all over her face. Yes. And so what do? We say, oh, sweetie, what's the matter? What will they always say first? Nothing. Exactly. You've lived this life, see. And when they say nothing, what do? You want to go, really, nothing? And tell your face that. Because your face is saying there's a problem, right? So if there's really nothing wrong, then fix your flipping face. Because your face is telling me that there is a big problem. That's what's happening here. God says, hey, Cain, face. What's going on with your face, bro? If what's going on in your face is going on in your heart, it's a real problem. If what I'm seeing, I can't see your heart, but I can see your face. And if your face is any indication of what's happening in your heart, you got something you need to fix, right? Now watch what happens. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? In other words, Cain was struggling with the idea that if God accepts one, he automatically rejects the other. God's like, no, there's enough acceptance to go around. It's not like there's not enough big enough piece of the pie for you, right? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. In other words, if whatever's going on in your face is going in your heart, you got to rule over this. This is not innocuous. You can't play with this. This is envy. And we all know how it ends. It ends very poorly. Watch this, next one. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. So this ends very, very poorly. It ends in violence. And that's the problem with envy. Next slide. Envy and comparison lead us to violence. That's the problem. Normally, I'm gonna do a bit of a lesson here on the psychology of envy. I do have a master's degree in clinical psychology, so I'm scientifically, I'm qualified to talk about this, but you'll know this is true just by looking at your life. Envy and jealousy lead normally reasonable people to rationalize doing violent things. Anytime you see a normally reasonable person lashing out, oftentimes at the heart of that lash out is envy. Because when envy gets in our heart, normally reasonable people will rationalize doing violence. Let me illustrate. Somewhere around here there's a high school. And at that high school, at least once a year, there's an act of violence. Guy number one, let's see how much you've lived this life. Guy number one beats up guy number two over a girl. Yes, you've lived this life. Here's how it works. Guy number one is dating said girl. Guy number two swoops over and steals said girl away, presumably with his six-pack of abs. Because in high school, that matters. By 40, everything doesn't matter. But high school, abs, here we go, right? Girl goes with guy number two. Guy number one gets filled with jealousy and he beats guy number two up. What is his goal? Is his goal to beat the guy up? No. His goal is to re-win the affections of the girl. Now, is that gonna work? No, never. There's never been a girl ever that says, you know what, I was gonna go with him, but now that you beat the crap out of him, I'm suddenly re-attracted to you, right? Why? If a girl did that, run, she's Looney Tunes, right? That never works, and that's the problem with envy. Normally, rational people rationalize violence, and here's the problem. Here's why envy's hard to deal with. Envy promises something it cannot deliver. Envy says, if you do violence, you'll get your way. And it never works. Cain does violence. Is suddenly God gonna accept his greed? No. When we do violence, all we do is simply do violence. Now you put this in the community of the church, and you got one person talking about another person because they're envious of their position. The idea is that if I do enough violence, I'll get that position. Never, ever works. Envy's hard to deal with because it promises something it can't deliver. When we think that someone else has something better, it leads us to envy and violence. This happens gradually. And it says sin is crouching at the door to destroy us. In other words, by the time envy's one of those things, but that by the time you realize it's on top of you, it's too late. You've already done something. It's something you have to keep on top of. This is common to my story. It's common to your story. Let's just admit it. You have rationalized violence because you got jealous of somebody in your life, whether it was talking about somebody or posting something or making a prayer request. We've all done it. I've done it. You've done it. And let's just all admit, it's been done to us. I've had people come against me because they were jealous of something that was happening. You've had people come against you. It's literally all over the biblical narrative. Let's look at the next slide. So it's all like Sarah, there's this one time where God tells Abraham, I want you to have a kid. And Abraham evidently was very old. And so Abraham's like, man, this isn't possible. Sarah's past menopause. So Sarah says, I think I know what God meant. I think God meant for you to sleep with our young slave girl and have a kid with her. That's what I think God meant. Now, don't get mad at Abraham. It was his wife's idea. I'm sure Abraham resisted mightily. What? Me? No. Sleep. A younger, more pretty? No, please. No. Variety? Please. No, don't make me. But he does. He does. Anyway, she gets pregnant and has a baby. Subsequent to that, Sarah ends up getting pregnant herself. And then Sarah realizes, no matter what I do, I'm not going to be the firstborn's mom. And jealousy filled her heart. What does she do? She banishes a single mom into the ancient Near Eastern wilderness. That's violence. And does she get her way? No. Is suddenly she the firstborn's mom? No. She just did violence. Jacob tricks Esau out of his entire birthright. Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery because of a coat. Now, his father was a horrible dad. Hey, I got 12 kids. I'm going to give one a special coat, nobody else. Horrible parenting. But the 11 brothers, envy fills their heart, and they sell their brother into slavery. The idea is if we get rid of him, our father will love us more. Is that true? No, their father just lived in grief. Envy promises something it can't deliver. Envy says, if you do violence, you will get your way. And it never, ever works. Saul tries to skewer David. The idea was, if I get rid of David, I'll be more popular. Is that going to be true? No. You martyr someone, they become more popular. But envy is so compelling that you could find very intelligent, normally reasonable people who will rationalize irrational, violent things because of envy. And that is dangerous. Why is envy hard to deal with? It promises something it can't deliver, right? There's another reason. Next slide. Envy, let's define what envy is. Envy is desiring some quality, status, power, success, or happiness that another person has. But it goes past that. It also desires them to fail or suffer because of it. Envy isn't just looking at someone's stuff and going, I wish I had that. Envy starts believing if they didn't have it, I would have it. So if I could create a way that they don't have it, then I will have it. This is a very deceitful, crouching tiger, predator sort of thing. Envy's not about the object, it's about the person. Envy is that, let me say it this way. Envy is that really dark side of us that would secretly celebrate if someone else went through strife. Envy is why tabloid magazines are a multi-billion-dollar year industry, because there's something in us that likes it when successful people go through stress. We love it. It's dark. It's the belief that, well, if they're that successful, then they should come down a notch. Let's say it this way. Next slide. Envy is widespread because it's the easiest to hide and the hardest to admit. Why is envy hard to deal with? It promises something it can't deliver. It says if you do violence, you'll get your way. It's also easy to hide and hardest to admit. Years ago, the church gave us something called the 7 deadly sins. Like the 7 habits of the heart that pose the most threat to a Christ-centered community. And of the 7 deadly sins, envy is the easiest one to hide and the hardest one to admit. Like if you have a small group that is participating with you in your redemptive process, and you should, like if you have 3 or 4 guys or 3 or 4 girls that you could say, listen, the church should never be the place where you confess the sins you do. The church should be the place that you can confess the sins you want to do before you actually do them, right? And then light can be dispelled, right? So if you came up to your small group and said, guys, I've got a problem in my heart. I've had some prideful thoughts this week. Well, no one's gonna judge you for that. They would say, welcome to the human race, and thanks for being brave enough to share that. Let's take that to the foot of the cross. Let's bring that into the light. Let's hold each other accountable for this, and it would work. But no one's surprised. No one's going to judge you. If your issue's gluttony, no one's surprised, right? If your issue's like, you know what, I habitually overeat, no one's going to be like, really? No way. Not you. Of course, we could see that. Your blood type's gravy. Are you kidding me? Of course we could see that. And no one's going to judge you for that, even though gluttony is strictly forbidden in Scripture 25 times more than homosexuality is. We'd be like, well, this is America. We all overeat. But let's bring this to the cross, right? But if somebody was to say, I'm struggling with envy. Wow, that's creepy. That's admitting out loud you think someone else is better than you. It'd be like, oh, envy you to the children's table. It's widespread because it's easy to hide, very difficult to admit. It's also hard to deal with because it's everywhere. Everywhere you look, it's driven. Number one driver of envy, Facebook. Facebook, number one driver of envy. This Facebook is, let me tell you what Facebook is. Facebook is a powerful marketing tool that you should be using for your business. But at its surface, at its most elemental level, Facebook is voyeurism for people's best side. This is how it works. So let's say you're thinking about somebody from high school named John. You're like, I wonder how John's doing. What would you do? You would wait till you got home, because you would never do this while I'm talking, because that would be rude. You would wait till you got home, and you would Facebook search John. Somehow, Facebook knows which John in the world you're talking about. Now, let's give it to them on that. That's pretty impressive, right? And here comes John's profile, and you click on it, right? When you click on John's profile, what do? Do you read his posts? No way. What do? You look at the, see, we live this life. Photo number one. John is standing in front of a new BMW or a new car, the kind you would want. And the post says, hey everybody, look at my new ride. You know what that post should say? Hey everybody, look what I just did. I bought something I can't afford with money I don't have to impress people I don't like. I'm gonna be broke for years because of this. Nope. Look at my new ride. Next post. Hey everybody, look at my new house. It's got 12-foot ceilings. Your house has 9-foot ceilings. Ha ha, right? Hey everybody, look at my new pad, right? And you're thinking, man, what a nice home. Wow. You know what that post should say? Hey everybody, look what I just did. I signed up for 30 years of entirely too much pressure. I'm gonna have rooms that I'll never actually walk in, so that people I actually don't care about will think I'm more successful than I actually am. Nope, look at my new house. Third picture, he's out, been married 15 years or something. Celebrating 15 years with my sugar plum. He's out at the best restaurant in Surprise, right? Red Robin or something. He's like celebrating 10 years. They're hugging at the table, gets the waiter to take the photo. Celebrating 15 years of my sugar plum. And when we look at that, what do we all do? Every one of us has the same reaction. Why? Because we know that on Facebook, everybody posts date night. They never post fight night, right? And if you're honest, you're looking at this, and before you realize it, you're like, man, I'd love Johnny's life. Flip. A car with no pressure. A house with no mortgage. A perfect marriage. He probably has 2-year-old twins that never cry. What are you talking about? The problem is, it's not real. It's not real. It's just Facebook real. Facebook is so powerful. It's actually responsible for a new social phenomenon that sociologists have named. It's called meta envy. Literally envy about envy. Let me illustrate this, right? I am 41 years old, which means I am no longer a young adult, right? No longer a young adult. Haven't been a young adult for years, but when you turn 40, something happens. Something happened to me when I turned 40, right? I don't know what it is. I've always been a night owl, always, my whole life. I've stayed up late. I can do things really late at night. Not a good morning person at all. Up until I was 39, the day I turned 40, I wanted to go to bed earlier. It's weird, right? It's like, it's 9:30. I should probably be turning in. I didn't know what was wrong with me. So I started to get concerned. So I started looking, and I thought, I wonder what's going to happen to me when I'm 50. What's going to happen? What happens from 40 to 50? From 30 to 40, I want to go to bed early. From 40 to 50, there's a fundamental difference in how you bend over and pick up something, right? So I've observed this. So like if you're 48 and you see something on the ground, you're like, this is how a 49-year-old person picks up something on the ground. They say, oh, look, something needs to be picked up. And they just lean over and they pick it up. That's how you do it at 49. The day you turn 50, what happens is you start making involuntary noises when you bend over, right? And you don't even realize you're doing it. So a 49-year-old just goes, hey, look, I'll pick this up, right? The day you turn 50, this is what happens. Oh, look, something needs to be picked up. And then you pick it up, right? And it's like, what is the matter with you? And you don't even know you did it, right? It's just a matter of turning 50, right? So I also know that I'm not a young adult when I hang out with young adults, right? So sometimes at churches, they'll want me to hang out with young adults, right? So they'll say, hey, go to dinner with our young adults. And if you watch a young adult, you watch two 23-year-olds at dinner, It is unbelievable. Can I just say, if you're under the age of 25, I want you to listen to me now, right? And trust me, I'm speaking for the whole room, all right? And the whole room better say amen to this, because I am right about this. You ready? Ready? Here we go. Here we ready? Ready? No one gives a crap what you ate for dinner. Right? I don't know what goes through the mind of a 23-year-old. I think the whole world wants to see my burrito. Right? And then the other 23-year-old's like, my chicken salad. And then there's this unspoken competition about who gets the most likes about something that no one actually cares about. Meta envy. Why is envy hard to deal with? Well, it promises something it can't deliver. It says if you do violence, you'll get your way. It's also easy to hide, hard to admit. It's widespread. It's driven by media, right? It's also complex. It's very complex. It's the revelation about our darkest side. Let me illustrate this with women, okay? So women will understand this. Men not so much, but women will. The second most embarrassing... The second most, I don't know, what would you call it? Not embarrassing, more anxiety-driven day of a woman's life is the first day of junior high. And here's why. Here's what happens, right? So you got a bunch of girls. They're 12 years old. They're in 6th grade. Everybody's little girls. And then there's a 10-week summer break. And then they come back from school. And some of them are still little girls, and some of them have become women. They've started puberty. They've done this stuff. And the ones that have started puberty have started to develop. The ones who haven't are still little girls, and they're just hoping that their first one doesn't start in math class, right? You're like, oh, please, God, don't let this, all right? So you got this. But there's always that one girl. I was preaching this once, and a 78-year-old woman yelled from the crowd, you're talking about Susie Moore, right? It stuck with this lady. She was in her 70s. It stuck with this lady. There's always that one girl when you come into junior high, and she develops first. And when I say she develops. And she becomes very popular with and she becomes very unpopular with What did she do? Nothing. She didn't make that choice. But she's got 40 invitations to the junior high dance, and you're flat out getting your second cousin to take you, right? And you hate her. You don't even realize it. 25 years later, you hadn't seen Susie Moore in years. 25 years later, you're in the grocery store, you coming around, right? Pushing your and you turn, and you look up, and there's Susie Moore. And you're like, hey, you? And you look up, and she's 100 pounds overweight. She's all scraggly, nothing's in the right place, and she didn't even bother not to wear sweatpants outside. And on the outside, you're like, hi, but on the inside, you're like, yes, ha, you peaked in high school, That is dark stuff. And it's funny because it's true. Envy is complex. It's multifaceted. Let me show you a few facets of it. Next slide. So first, there's physical envy. Physical envy starts at about age 6 and ends at death. Who's thinner, who's fitter, who's taller, who's shorter, who's this, who's that. Physical envy. And then there's envy about that envy about how we used to look. Let me let you in on men, okay? All right, so I did a woman one. Let me let you in on men. This is true of every man in this room. Every man in this room will do this as long as he doesn't think you're watching, right? If he thinks you're watching, he'll never do this. But if he thinks he's alone, every single man in this room will do this, all right? Relax. The guy at the back's like, Shane, no. I was like, I got this. Like, I am a professional, right? I got this, right? All right, no, not that. All right, listen, all right? Every man in the room, all right? Every man in the room, when they do their morning routine, men tend to do it without a shirt on. Like before they put anything on, they brush their teeth. And look, put a shirt on, right? But anyway, like you brush your teeth, you shave, whatever order it is. In whatever order it is, when you're done, every man in this room will take one last look in the mirror, and they will flex. And let me let you in on what a man's thinking when he does that, okay? Here's what he's thinking. You know what? In a completely fasted, totally dehydrated state, I sort of got it going on. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, you men, listen to me. This is very important. When you're flexing in the mirror and no one's watching, it's very important when you turn away from the mirror that you turn away in a certain sequence, right? The sequence is always head first, body second. Always, always. You have to turn your head first and then your body second. Here's why. Here's why. If you accidentally turn your body first, you're gonna get a glimpse of your side profile, and that is totally different. It happened to me once. I was flexing, and I was like, hey, in a completely fasted, totally dehydrated state, I sort of got it going on. And then I accidentally turned with my body first, and I was like, oh my God! It made me so insecure. Like later that day, I met this girl for the first time. I was like, hey, how you going? She must have thought I was insane because I was doing things to make sure she never saw my side profile. So when we moved, I was like, hey. Yep. She never called back, right? There's physical. Then there's talent and success without considering the price they paid. So we look at somebody who's successful and we want what they have, but we have no idea or clue what they did to get there. There's education and social circles, like the more letters you have, and this even plays into, this is how widespread it is. It's even in like airline clubs and stuff. Like I have more airline miles than anybody in here, I feel certain about that. But honestly, it's a joke. Let me just tell you, getting that highest status, here's what they let you do. You ready? They let you get on the plane first. Here's all that means. That you get to sit on that plane and wait for everybody else to get on before they leave. It's a scam. The only thing that's good about it is every now and then they will bump you to first class because you fly so much with them. Now that's fun. I remember the first time they ever bumped me to first class, they said, Mr. Willard, we need you to come. So I come up and they said, we're gonna bump you to first class. I was like, this is the first time this ever happened. And this is how envy works. I'm sitting there, I was in economy 10 minutes ago. I'm sitting there in first class and all these people are walking by and I couldn't help myself. I looked at them and I thought, schmucks, sitting back there, right? This is how it works. It's in our social circles. I get to do some big conferences now, and in big conferences they have green rooms, right? It's a room that's exclusive. You're not allowed in there. You gotta have a club. You gotta have like a little pass. And then in real big conferences, they have green rooms inside green rooms for like the really, right? And trust me, I've been in them. You don't want to be in there. It's unbelievable, right? It's this idea that it's better in there. And listen, I want you to be educated. I do. Get an education. But if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. If you want to drive a BMW, please drive a BMW. But I can tell you, if you're not enough without it, you'll never, ever be enough with it. If you want to be married, great. I want you to get married. A good spouse is a good thing to have. Now, you marry poorly, you'll pray for a comet to come to earth to bring you sweet relief from them. But I'm telling you, a good spouse is a good thing to have. But if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. There's no such thing as a happy marriage that was forged between two miserable single people, right? Man, we hated our lives, but marriage fixed it all. No, it just doesn't work. There's parenting envy, right? This is where we do violence on our children because they don't measure up to other children, right? You're like, come on, keep up, right? This is why we all secretly hate 6-year-old birthday parties. We hate them. Why? Because you can't leave. You can't leave 46-year-olds with one parent. So somebody's got to stay. And who's always going to be the one to stay? The mom. You never see one lonely dad in there. The moms will be like, sir, this is creepy. Please leave, right? So the moms are there. And once the games start and all that, what do the moms do? They congregate and they chat. And all it takes is one mom. That's all it takes. One mom starting it, talking about how smart her kid is. I can't believe how smart Susie is. She's nailing that math homework this year. She's 6. This is hardly NASA, right? But as soon as that mom does that, every other mom in the circle has to defend their child and one up the story. And the stories get ridiculous. Oh, well, mine did this and mine did that. And it gets absurd. And let me help you with this. I travel the world, okay? Listen, you live in Phoenix. I don't care how smart your kid is. There's an Asian kid in the corner that's already figured out the Pythagorean theorem. He's smarter, all right? All right, you're not going to measure up with him, all right? Let your kids be kids. Moms are like, I saw this video this mom was posting. She was serious. It was on Facebook. She said, hey, everybody, I think my kid's a genius. Now, this kid is like, I don't know how old, but he still had a diaper on, but he could walk around really freely, right? So however old that is, right? And he's like walking around like kids do, walking around. And so she's trying to get his attention. She had a flashcard with a bee on it. And she just wanted to show the whole world that he knew what a bee was. So she says, hey, buddy, what's this? And that kid looked at that camera and went, and she goes, that's right, bee. No one heard that kid say bee. And furthermore, let's hold off on the genius label until he knows not to crap his pants, right? Honestly. So it just goes on. Next one. Then there's spiritual envy. Like, why don't I see the things they see? Have you ever heard a speaker and they said obvious things, but it was only obvious after they said it? And you're like, why didn't I think of that, right? Or leadership. Like I go to Australia a lot, and there's a guy you might have heard of named Brian Houston, right? He runs Hillsong. And everything Brian Houston does turns to gold. Honestly, it's like, what's the deal, man? I work hard, I pray, what the heck? You could tranquilize Brian Houston, drop him naked in the middle of Afghanistan, and he'd have a church of 20,000 by December. And you're like, what the heck? And then people try to hurt him because of envy. Next one. Then there's lifestyle envy. You know, there's TV shows dedicated to showing you how richer people live. Like they'll show you Shaq's house, 42,000 square feet, 13 bedrooms, 2 bowling alleys, you know. And the subtle intimation is if only you worked a little harder, maybe you. No, you're not 7'2". You don't weigh 340 pounds. You don't have 9% body fat and a 44-inch vertical leap. Not gonna be you. And would you really want it to be you? 44,000 square feet? There'd be rooms, you'd be terrified at night. Every noise, what, are you kidding me? And who would clean it, right? Then there's workplace envy, like the idea that the next place will have less envy, you know? The idea that, if I could just, you know, this is going to surprise you. Sometimes people leave churches over envy. They'll be like, man, so political over there, you know, I'm pretty talented, you know. They let me join the worship team, but I know they turned my mic off. I know they do. And I tell the sound guy, I can't hear myself. And the sound guy's like, we hear you fine. But I know it's off. It's one of those courtesy mics, right? And they let the pastor's daughter sing because they say she's better, but she's not. It's just the pastor's daughter. It's just family politics. I'm going somewhere there's less politics. It's like, wait a minute, what you gonna go somewhere with no people? Right? It's a lie. And so you might be thinking, Shane, this was a funny sermon, man, actually. Thank you for taking something heavy and making it light. And I admit that at times I'm stuck in the land of Ur. I don't look in and up, I look right and left. But you haven't given us one thing to do about it. Glad you asked. Let me give you 2 things for your heart and 2 things for your hands, okay? 2 things for your heart and 2 things for your hands. First, the 2 things for your heart. 1 is to realize that envy is rooted in how you see yourself, never about what the other person has. Right? So if you're not okay with you could, if you get the BMW, it doesn't make you feel any better. If you get the bigger house, it won't help. It's a good thing to have, but if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. And until we realize that, we'll chase Ur. 2, the simplest gospel message is that you're loved while you were imperfect and before you realized any potential in your life. Those are 2 things that we have to get deep into our heart. But let me give you 2 things for your hands. This is 2 things you could do starting today. Next slide. Gratitude for what is present in our now will break the power of envy. Now, let me stop and speak slowly on this, okay? There's a part of faith that is looking forward. Call things that are not as though they are. We need to believe God for the next thing, right? And if you're a leader, you need to be doing that. But that will not help envy. What will help envy is, let me say it in a way we'll remember, 10 times a day for 10 seconds. 10 times a day for 10 seconds, 10 by 10. 10 times a day for 10 seconds. Stop and be thankful only for what is in your right now. Let me say it this way. If God never did one more thing for any of our lives would still be awesome. So I try to do this 10 times a day. I'll illustrate it in case you're confused. So I'll stop and I'll say, Lord, thank you for my voice. Thank you that it works. Thanks for my mind. Thank you that my mind works different than other people. Thanks for my memory. I have an almost photographic memory for what I see. I can't remember anything I hear, but if I could see it, I could take a picture of it. And that's really, really helpful, right? It's a blessing. It's unique. It's a blessing. Unless you're trying to forget something, then it's bad. Like, I accidentally saw my granny naked once, and I can't get that. It's just in there. But it's like, she looked like a hound dog in a shower cap. You can't believe it. Right? I was like, oh my goodness, I can't get it out yet. There it is, right? But anyway, it's something to be thankful for, right? Thanks that my legs work. Thank you that my feet work. Thank you for my friends, people who love me. Thank you. Oh, Lord, I thank you. I woke up this morning in one of the top 5 greatest nations on the earth. Like a land with motor cars and paved roads and stores that prepackage food for me. Clean water on tap, world-class healthcare right down the road. Wow. When people complain about America, I'm like, I travel the world. Where you gonna go, man? If you can't make it here, where you gonna go? In Australia, it's $35 for a case of Coke. Trust me. Where you gonna go? This is a great place. I do not have a chemotherapy appointment today. Hey, if God never did anything else for me, we're even. We're good. We're good. See, gratitude for what's in our now takes our focus off of what's over there. Right. Because if you live in America, you're automatically in the richest 93% of the whole world. And if you live like most of us live in America, you're in the richest 1% of the whole world. So to look right is only splitting hairs between the top 1%. It's not worth it. Right. Gratitude for what's in our now. Secondly, is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Let me say it in a way we'll remember. 10 times a day for 10 seconds, stop and be grateful for only what's in your now. And then once a week, do something for someone who can do nothing in return, right? In other words, if you're gonna look right and left, fine, look left. Always look this way, not to compare yourself, but to make their life better. And then when you spend all your energy being thankful for what's in your now and making other people's lives better, you won't have any more energy to let envy destroy your life. You can overcome envy. How? Gratitude for what's in your now and making other people's lives better. I bless you to be people who build a Christ-centered community, who don't let envy destroy what God might do here. The only way you can do that is to celebrate publicly the people who threaten you privately. Celebrate publicly the very people who threaten you the most privately. To do something for someone who could do nothing in return for you. And to 10 times a day for 10 seconds, be thankful for just what's in your now. And all of your energy and your focus will go in and up and left instead of focusing on what these people have that you don't have. Believe me, you wouldn't feel better with it. Envy always promises something it can't deliver. I bless you to be people who are free from envy, jealousy, and comparison and never, ever, ever get stuck in the land of Ur again. Let me pray for you. Lord, we love you. We honor you. We proclaim you're king. There's none like you. Lord, free us from the land of Ur. Why don't you just right now where you're sitting, why don't you underneath your breath begin to be thankful for only what's in your right now. Just only what's in your right now. Only what's in your right now. And the second question you could ask is, Lord Jesus, would you bring to my heart and my mind a need I could meet for someone that could nothing in return for me? Let's act. Let's not just be hearers. Let's be doers. Amen. Thank you so much for letting me be part of your day. I love you. If you want to stay around for the next service, it's a completely different message. I promise you, it'll be worth the hour and 15 minutes of your time to do so. You won't do anything else in that hour and 15 minutes that'll change your life that much, okay? So if you stay, I'd love to see you again. If not, please come by the table and help me feed some kids, okay? Until I see you again next time, grace and peace. God bless.